to allow Ghanaians with dual passports to freely contest national elections.
And why would we have a law that says that if you want to come and be an MP in Ghana, you must give up your other citizenship?
The former president has been, amongst many things, alleging the manipulation of the judiciary in injuncting the Asin North MP Richard Chachi-Kwesin. Also this afternoon, pensioner bondholders resumed picketing at the Ministry of Finance as they pile pressure on government to pay matured coupons and principals without further delay. They are suggesting government borrows from the Treasury bill market to offset their bonds. We'll hear from them shortly. And much later, anti-LGBT campaigners call on the police to close down office property in East Legon here in Accra, set to be the headquarters of gay rights activists. Meanwhile, the coalition of Muslim organizations Ghana is supporting the re-election bid of 8 MPs sponsoring the Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Value Bill. We hear from them as well in all of the stories in the next 30 minutes. A pleasure that you could be a part of this afternoon's bulletin. We begin with some politics because the former President John Mahama and flag bearer hopeful of the National Democratic Congress, John Mahama, says persons who hold dual citizenship must be allowed to freely contest national elections. According to him, the current laws have been misinterpreted. NDC MP for Asin North, Richard Chachi-Kwesin, has been fighting a long-drawn legal battle after a high court in Cape Coast ruled that the election, which brought him into Parliament, be annulled for his failure to renounce his Canadian citizenship in time to contest the 2020 general elections. But according to John Mahama, the courts have been used by the current administration to deny the Asin North constituency a legislator.
We've seen the cardinal sin of the Fourth Republic, which is the disenfranchisement of the people of Sam. For one whole term, they've not had a member of parliament. But even if we put that aside, the people of Asin North elected a person to represent them in parliament. This government has manipulated the judiciary in such a way that they've injuncted the member of parliament for Asin North. So even though he's the elected member, he cannot perform the duties of an MP. That is a gross injustice, and it's an affront to our democracy.
Well, Mr. Mahama, who was speaking to party supporters at Tamale, promised to have the law clarified to allow dual citizens freely contest national elections.
When NDC comes into power, we are going to clarify that constitutional provision that compels them to give up their foreign citizenship before they contest elections. A country's human resource is its best resource, and we happen to have about 3 million of our citizens abroad. They've acquired experience, they've acquired different talents. And why would we have a law that says that if you want to come and be an MP in Ghana, you must give up your other citizenship? Meanwhile, we have a dual citizenship law. We're going to clarify it. They can come and stand for parliament. They can come and hold office in Ghana. They don't have to give up their other citizenship to be able to hold those offices.
That's former President John Dramani Mahama. Let's get on the phone now. Speak to Law Lecturer Justice Abdullah. He's also a private legal practitioner. Subjects the commentary by the former president to some scrutiny. Many thanks, Counsel, for speaking to us. And so the former president says that he's going to seek a clarification of the law which allows or which bars persons who hold dual citizenship from contesting national elections. What possible actions can be taken to review a law of such nature?
Let me state for the record that indeed there's already a bill. I have seen a bill that attempts to do away with the dual nationals and barring them from holding other public offices. I am sure that maybe this has not been brought to the attention of His Excellency because it's been around for a while, I think for about 4 years or thereabout, even though I haven't seen much being done about it. I pray that it goes through. I think it was the bill is dated 2018. there's something already ongoing, and I'm hoping that it be brought to the attention of His Excellency to maybe guide what he has in mind. It's not a bad idea to really look at the whole essence of taking away or reaffirming the position on dual nationals and the position that they can hold in our offices. The rationale behind the initial stance of the law was that you shouldn't have people who owe allegiance to other countries also being heads of the institutions of this country and being privy to lots of sensitive information and possibly selling them to other countries. We are aware of other nations having spies and all kinds of persons around. So imagine if our head of national security is also a national of another country. He wouldn't be selling information, in fact, he'd be giving information sometimes in free of charge to those countries. And so these are some of the policy reasons behind barring the dual nationals from having other positions. I think Professor Sari contested this issue in the past at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court had to go into some of these areas to identify the rationale behind it and all of that. And so it's nothing new. It's good that the argument is coming back for us to have a conversation around it and see how best we can work around these difficult waters.
It's interesting you mentioned the Supreme Court having taken a view on this, because in the past there's been others who've been jailed as a result of wielding dual citizenship and rising to become MPs. Adamu Sakandi Draman, a name that readily comes to the lips of Ghanaians. With the Supreme Court having given a ruling on this, one will argue that it should firm up whatever conversations that can be had on a law of such a nature. Because on the example you even cite on national security, for example, is it the case that when this is reviewed or looked at, there will be areas which will be no-go areas for dual citizens?
Yes, indeed. To clarify, the MPs who have been convicted or are being prosecuted for various offences under our nationality laws are not entirely because they hold dual nationals. It is rather the opposite, that they are nationals of other countries. They are other nationals of other countries, not other than Ghana. And so they hold allegiance, or that they hold allegiance to other countries instead of having allegiance to Ghana. And some of them hid these informations from the Electoral Commission at the time they were swearing an oath, which is that signing the affidavit that they are indeed Ghanaians, when in fact they are nationals of other countries. So it's not because they are Ghanaians and indeed nationals of other countries, but it's because they are rather nationals of other countries, and sometimes because they also hid their information or misled the rest of the country to believing that they are indeed Ghanaians when they are actually, or in fact, or in law, not Ghanaians. And so that is the difference. So really, moving on from that, if we indeed have this law looked at it, depending on how the nation moves on with the decision, as of now, for now, Supreme Court cannot do much about it because that's what the law says. And so it would only interpret it in favor of what the law says, because we've seen that our Supreme Court sometimes does not like to expand on the ordinary meaning of the law, of course, unless it used those expansions. And so because of that, they would not be able to do much about it. If Parliament has decided that these persons cannot hold these certain offices, it will remain so until a stronger argument is made against such a holding. And for me, this kind of conversation is probably what may reinforce the decision for us to either have an amendment or to allow persons from other places to hold certain sensitive offices, or relook at those offices and see whether some of them they can be allowed to hold them, rather than having a blanket no-go area for multiple nationalities of our fellow Ghanaians, if you want to put it that way.
Right then, Councillor, I appreciate that you could speak to us this afternoon.
forgot in country always.
That's Justice Abdullah. He's a private legal practitioner and a law lecturer as well with the University of Professional Studies Accra, speaking to us this afternoon on the commentary by the former president. We'll move away from this and take you to the finance ministry, because this afternoon pensioner bondholders resumed picketing at the finance ministry as they continue to pile pressure on government to pay their matured coupons on their investment and the principal. Government, in the lead up to announcing a successful domestic debt exchange program, declared an exemption of bonds held by pensioner groups, promising to honor all payments. But according to lead convener Dr. Mawuena Egbeta, they are yet to receive their monies. The pensioner bondholders are among others asking government to borrow from the treasury bills market to offset the debt. My colleague Judith Awachitando, she is at the finance ministry. She's joined us live on the telephone with some more. Judith, talk to us about this morning's picket, and the indication we get is that the pensioner bondholders have left.
Right, Mawuena. So yes, I'm currently at the Ministry of Finance. It is at the entrance that they had gathered this morning to express their displeasure on government against what they say is the delay in the payments of their bonds, that is their coupons as well as their principals. Now, speaking to the convener earlier, he had made mention that currently there's an outstanding of 22 bonds, so 19 going to the coupons as well as 3 others going to principals. They are very much agitated. Most of them are speaking about how much they are unable to survive, especially in this current economic crisis. You see that most of them are plainly living on these bonds for their medical bills. They are feeding on a daily basis, and these are pensioners. They are 60 and above, and so most of them are really very much frustrated. I've been speaking to some of them, and they say that this is plain robbery.
You see, if you borrow from the treasury bill market, it will raise your debt level a bit. That is fine. But you are faced with a condition where you have to do that. For people who need their money for their medication. And the government, the president once said, you cannot bring the dead back to life, but you can bring the economy back. So if we are faced with a situation where the bondholders, which mainly we are talking about the pensioners, who needs their money for medication, and you don't give them and they will die, you can't bring them back. So borrow from the treasury bill market and pay them so that they can live, and then we can bring the economy back. For the principals, I don't even see the problem of government. The principal is due. If you haven't paid, it is still part of your debt. If you borrow from the treasury bill and pay, your debt level remains the same. You owe 10 billion. You borrow 5 million to pay 5 million. You still owe 10 million. So I can't see government problem even there. Borrow from the treasury bill market and pay the principal.
That's Dr. Mawuena Egbeta. Judith Awachitando is my colleague. She's still with us on the telephone line. Judith, are there any timelines provided by the pensioner bondholders as to expectations when they receive their monies?
And so they have not yet provided any timelines. They've also not yet told us how long they'll be on picketing at the Ministry of Finance. But it looks like they would be here every morning until their demands are met.
Right then, my colleague Judith Awachitando at the Finance Ministry providing details there for us as the pensioner bondholders have resumed picketing at the Ministry of Finance, forcing and insisting that government pays them their returns on bonds and other investments captured in government bonds. You're listening to the news here on 3FM 92.7. We're streaming live on Facebook. Our handles 3FM 927, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. Same handles 3FM 927. We're moving away from this, bringing you some other matters. And an anti-gay group, Islamic Youth for Peace, are asking the Ghana Police Service to swoop in on the activities of people alleged to be gay activists around the Shiashi area at East Legon. The group says the alleged gay rights activists are using the East Legon branch as their headquarters and are holding several meetings attracting young people into their fold. Sakasalia, the spokesperson for the Islamic Youth, and we'll hear from him shortly, but my colleague Richard Bright Ado is at that news engagement, and he'll join us on phone with details as to exactly what they are saying there, as they allege, amongst many other things, headquarters for gay rights activists at East Legon here in Accra. Meanwhile, the coalition of Muslim organizations Ghana, they've thrown their weight behind the 8 MPs who are seeking the re-election of some members of parliament sponsoring the anti-LGBT bill in parliament. 7 of those are NDC MPs who go to the polls on Saturday, and as you know, we'll be bringing you details here, but Richard Breitado has joined us on phone with some details. Richard, exactly what are the concerns of this group and this allegation of a headquarters of gay rights activists at Shashi?
Yes, so Mawuena, this Islamic group, just this morning, they all converged at the Shashi area of East Legon. For them, even though you may consider it to be an allegation or some speculation, they have been on the ground, they have visited the place, they mingle with the people, they know the activities that goes on, some nefarious activities in the night and in the day. But they are using they say skating. So they try to train the kids. What they have kids, they have groups that come in there, and they said in the name of training them on skating, they end up, assimilating their minds and educating them on a number of social vices that are not good for this country. So they have done their investigation, but they said that they were part of the group that went to. You remember the case at Dom Kwabenya, where there were some gay activists there. So they were part of it, but this time they didn't like the way it went, as in, bumping into the rooms of the activists and then going to ransack the place. They said hooligans joined them to do that thing. And so this time round, they want to do this in a more civilized way. That is why they did not enter the house. But let me paint a quick picture. When the building is very close to the roadside.
Have they showed you the building as journalists who attend this news
conference? It was right in front of the building that they held a press conference. So they stood there. Whilst we were there, the security people and some bouncers came. They wouldn't allow them access into the room. Yes, the group said they would not go into the rooms like they did the other time, but they want to show to the world that this is the place this is what the house that is, hosting the headquarters of the gay rights activists in Ghana. They also said that the American vice president allegedly visited the place, and that ambassador also comes in as and when. Now they have the inscription community. They call it community of life. So that is the yellow inscription that you will see right at the gate, the community of life.
Right.
Then beside it, they have something like Sea Gate, and then there's a flag with some writings. And then when you look beyond the house, inside you flip through the compound, there are signs of the symbols of the gay symbols. So like the fingers and all of that, you could see that in the building.
Right.
And so based on this, they are convinced that the police must quickly move in and arrest all the people.
Right then, that's my colleague Richard Breitado at that news conference, providing details there for us as to concerns raised by an Islamic youth group alleging the headquarters of LGBT right activists at Shashi here in Accra. Richard says he visited the area, they've seen the house, and the group is calling on the police to take immediate action so as not to have them be the ones do that. And the conversations in terms of anti-LGBT and LGBT continues to be one that stokes a lot of controversy anytime it does come up. We're moving away now to the Ashanti region, as we mentioned in that story that some 7 of the NDC MPs who sponsored the anti-LGBT bill would be going for their primaries later this weekend. The Asawasi constituency is one of the areas I will be keeping a keen eye on here at 3FM and on TV3. And come May 13, when delegates of the National Democratic Congress go to the polls to elect who represents the party in the 2024 parliamentary elections, the constituency focus for us this afternoon is Asawase. My colleague Ibrahim Abubakar, he's joined us on the telephone line to provide a lot more details. Ibrahim, 4 more days to go. What are the issues which are dominating the conversations in the final weeks of preparation ahead of the primaries?
Well, Mawuena, before we delve into the issues, we know Asawase is the heart of the NDC in the Ashanti region because since its creation in 2004, the seat has been saved for the NDC. So, obviously, any NDC-related activity here is of interest to many, the constituents and even national. So, you realize that campaign has been heightened, posters are around things that we are not seeing the previous years because we know 2015, 2019, Muntaka contested or went unopposed. So there was no need for these kind of contests and other issues. But you know, when you come to Asawase, majority of the population are in their youthful ages. And the issue here, the major issue here has to do with youth unemployment. And these are some of the things people are discussing because when it comes to infrastructure, talk about roads, schools, the Member of Parliament has done bits to improve those aspects. But now they are looking at the human capital bit where that will minimize the youth unemployment in the area. So these are some of the reasons why even some of the constituents are calling for change. They admit that the Member of Parliament has done his best, but for them, it is now the time for them to get someone who understands the issues of the youth and someone who is ready to address their issues. So basically, the conversation is centered on youth unemployment and also how to uplift the status of the party within the constituency. Because one key concern for the NDC members here is that the MPP is gaining ground here. Most of the youth who previously were with the NDC are gradually joining the MPP. And these are some of the concerns that they need someone, a new face who will be able to address these concerns so that they will retain the seat here for NDC and retain it decisively. I engage with some of them. You know, once others are talking about change, others also see that the MP is doing enough, and for that matter, he should be retained to do more. Let's briefly listen to some of the constituents I engage with.
When it comes to empowerment, Muntaka is the best because he has helped a lot. Even according to my calculation, within this year, those who he has helped to acquire their education at the tertiary, he helped almost 110 students to the tertiary. So why not? What do we have to change him?
I won't stand here and discredit the efforts made by the incumbent. He's done his bit. But as time moves on, things change. We need somebody who understands the youth system and can fit in to be able to match the youth with opportunities to reduce the incidence of crime wave in the country. And that's why we are calling for change.
So some of the constituents in the Ashanti region speaking to my colleague Ibrahim Abubakar, who unfortunately we've lost on the telephone lines, will return to us to provide a bit more nuance ahead of Saturday's polls. And Asawase continues to be one of the constituencies which will be keenly contested in terms of the parliamentary elections. The Ningo Pram constituency as well is one where all eyes will be on, as the incumbent Sam George will be seeking to fend off his main opponents. The last time he won by just 7 votes. Will be interesting what the outcome would be like in the Ningo Pram constituency as well. But here on your election command center, I'll be providing details for you as to exactly what will be happening here. Ibrahim Abubakar has joined us on the telephone lines again. Ibrahim, let's just wrap up. So we've heard from the constituents on the ground, though, in terms of the activism from both candidates. What is it looking like?
Well, for now, I can tell you that when majority of the delegates are moving along with Muntaka, but when it comes to election, the MP himself said, even though he is confident of winning, but for him it is never over until it's over. It is a secret ballot, so sometimes the people who follow you may end up deceiving you. But for now, when you look at numbers, people who follow each of the aspirants to their campaign grounds, I would say that most of the delegates are following Muntaka and Masaudu. But we have to wait on May 13 for the delegates to decide on who represents the party in the 2024 general election.
Right, then Ibrahim Abubakar, my colleague in the Ashanti region, are monitoring the contest at Asawasi and providing details there for us. We'll stay with the NDC this time on different matters because the former Northern Region NDC Deputy Communications Officer Hadi Pagazar has been arrested this morning and is currently in police custody. His arrest is in connection with an alleged assault on Tamale-based Dagban FM journalist last Wednesday during a live broadcast. The Ghana Journalists Association have condemned the attack and they've, amongst many other things, called for the arrest and prosecution of the NDC activists, along with the Information Minister Kojo Ponkruma, who also, through the Information Ministry, issued a statement condemning the attack which took place on International Press Freedom Day. Christopher Mwako is my colleague in the Northern Region. He'll join us on phone with some details as to the arrest and what we know so far in relation to the arrest, but it's amongst many other things joined the flurry of attacks on journalists leading to a steady or continuous decline rather of Ghana on the World Press Freedom Index. The country now ranks 62nd, down from 60th in terms of press freedom rankings in the country. While we wait to connect with Christopher Mwako, this afternoon though, the Food and Drugs Authority has urged small and medium scale food manufacturing companies to take advantage of its progressive licensing scheme to ensure good manufacturing practices. The scheme forms part of efforts by the authority to scale up quality and safe food products on the market. Speaking at a food safety retreat by the World Food Programme in Accra, the Deputy CEO of the FDA, Roderick Dade Ejay, emphasized the need to maintain consumer confidence in the food system.
It was in the spirit of sharing information. This is one of the ways that we think that we should go in order to be able to sustain efforts. Most of the time, people look outside and don't look inward, but we are looking inward and strengthening our system. So that was the Food and Drugs Authority this morning had the opportunity to share with the World Food Programme the concept of what we call the progressive license scheme. Sometimes people who are manufacturing products here think that the registration process is cumbersome and it's expensive. But there's a flagship program that the Food and Drugs Authority has been pushing. And we are happy to say that we have been able to register over, over 1,000 products that belong to what we call the progressive license scheme. Now,
that's the Deputy FDA CEO, Roderick Dade Ejay. Christopher Mwako has joined us on the telephone line now with some details of the arrest of Mr. Pagazar, who attacked a journalist last Wednesday. Chris, what do we know about this arrest?
Yes, so according to our police sources, the suspect turned himself in with his lawyer, Elliot. He has since been arrested by the Northern Regional Police Command, and as it stands now, his statement is being taken for further action to be taken.
Further action to be taken. Have you cited him yourself? What's his mood and demeanor? And are we seeing an instance where party supporters are attempting to mass up in support?
Yes, for now, party supporters are not massive at the police station yet. But what we do know is that after the incident, a lot of people have condemned him. And for that matter, everybody was already calling on the police to take action against him so that it will serve as a deterrent to other politicians who would want to take the laws into their own hands. But officials in the region are working out to get him bail. That is what we do know now.
Right then, many thanks, Christopher Mako. He's my colleague in the northern and Savannah regions. We'll return to the Ashanti region because there's an easy calm at the precinct of the Feyasi police station following the arrest of a man believed to have shot and killed the 33-year-old man, Adamu Janto, a resident of Sewa. Evan Sinkum has joined us on telephone with some brief details. Evan, just briefly, what exactly has been happening?
Okay, so it was over a piece of land that the suspect had bought from the deceased. Apparently, he also heard, I'm talking about a suspect whose name we've been told is Lucky, that the said land was also in the possession of another person. So there was some level of tension that had ensued between the deceased and the suspect. In the course of that, but the suspect had demanded for a refund of his money. The deceased had told the suspect that unless they move to the chief's palace, it will be very difficult for him to also refund that particular money. So in the course of that movement, tension escalated. The deceased pulled a gun, allegedly gave a warning shot. There was a scuffle, and there were two witnesses. One of the witness, that is Adamu, lost his life in the course of that. So more or less, the other witness, per his narration, appears to be more or less like a stray bullet.
Right then, Evan Sinkum providing details there for us. There'll be a lot more on this if you stay with us in the course of the day. A lot more news as well if you log on to 3news.com. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta. The business team is on standby to bring us the very latest from the world of business.